Part 2. I now append the account of the Croxford trial, copied, as with few alterations as possible, from the pamphlet reprinted by Mr. Henson of Northampton in 1848. At the Assizes held at Northampton on Thursday, August 2nd, 1764, came on before the Right Honourable the Lord Chief Baron Barker the trials of Benjamin Deacon, John Croxford, Richard Butland for the murder of a travelling pedlar, known only as Scotty, at a house of ill fame called Catslow, in the parish of Guilsborough, kept by one Thomas Seymour, who was executed at Northampton on April 23rd last for a robbery on the highway, and had been a receptacle of thieves and highwaymen for some time. The chief evidence against them was that of Anne Seymour, widow of the above Thomas Seymour. She deposed that sometime between Michaelmas and Christmas last, the said pedlar, supposed to be one Thomas Corey, came to the said house, where were at that time the said Seymour, Deacon, Crawford, and Butland, to whom he offered stockings, etc., for sale, but not agreeing as to the price, they proposed to murder him, and directly Seymour knocked him down, Butland fell upon his legs, Deacon upon his face, to prevent him from crying out, and Croxford, pulling out a knife, cut his throat in such a manner as the head was almost off. With the body stirring a little, Croxford stabbed him in the head, which put an end to his life. They then stripped him and carried the clothes upstairs, where Seymour's 3 children were in bed, after which a hole was dug by Seymour in the close adjoining to the house where they buried the body. But thinking themselves not safe, they dug up the body again and cut it into several pieces. These latter they put into an oven and were 3 days and nights trying to consume them, in the end succeeding only with the flesh and having to bury the bones, which were now produced in court and held as testimony against them. Being asked by the judge why she did not reveal the same before, Mrs. Seymour answered that her husband threatened to murder her if she mentioned it to anyone, whilst Crawford, holding a knife to her throat with one hand and having a book in the other, swore he would instantly kill her if she did not take an oath to conceal all knowledge of the matter. The next witness for the prosecution, Mrs. Seymour's little boy of 10 years of age, stated that on being kicked one day at school by a playmate, he had in passion cried out that he would serve him as his daddy served Scotty, which statement being overheard by the schoolmaster, the latter called him into his presence and demanded an explanation. On the witness refusing to comply, he was shut up in a room by himself, where he remained till the arrival of his mother. In the meantime, the schoolmaster, who, like everyone else in Guilsborough, had only known the pedlar by his name of Scotty, and like other folk had wondered at his long absence from the village, seeing that many people owed him money, and others were in want of goods, began to put 2 and 2 together, and had arrived at the conclusion that the boy knew more than he dare tell, when Mrs. Seymour entered the house, in a state of breathless alarm to know why her son had not turned up for his dinner, whereupon the schoolmaster had boldly taxed her with the knowledge of Scotty's fate, which after no little hesitation and a great many tears she had admitted. This led to the present witness confessing that, chancing to peep through the cracks of the chamber floor one afternoon, he had seen his father and some other men trying to burn some hands and feet in an oven, near to which there was a light grey coat and a cane which he recognized as belonging to Scotty, who had been to their house the day before. On being asked by the judge if he could identify the prisoners with the men he had seen helping his father, he at once answered in the affirmative. This concluded his testimony, after which several other witnesses, whose evidence I cannot record here through lack of space, were then called, Croxford, Deacon, and Butler protesting their innocence of the crime laid against them, declaring that the whole case had been maliciously trumped up by Mrs. Seymour and her son. After the evidence of both sides had been thoroughly examined, the judge summed up, and the jury, after a quarter of an hour's absence, returned with a verdict of wilful murder, a demonstration being made by the prisoners against Anne Seymour as she left the court. On Saturday, August 4th, the prisoners were carried from the jail to the place of execution, guarded by a party of Sir Charles Howard's dragoons, with fixed bayonets and muskets loaded with powder and ball, where they joined fervently in prayers with the minister, Croxford delivering a paper to one of the attendant jailers, which he decided might be published for the satisfaction of the world. This document is too long to quote ad verbum. A brief summary will suffice. In it, John Croxford said he is about 23 years of age and by trade a tailor, that he was born in Brixworth of creditable parents who gave him a liberal education, and that his character and behavior were very good until January 1760, when he got into bad company, which had proved his ruin. This much he confessed, but denied he had been guilty of murder. Benjamin Deacon writes that he was born of Stratton, and is about 25 years of age, and by trade a sawyer, that he bore a tolerable good character until Christmas last, when he committed various crimes, but not murder. Richard Butland testifies that he was born of respectable parents at Guilsborough, had a good education, is about 20 years of age, and by trade a glover and breechmaker, that he had always borne a good character and is innocent of murder. The manuscript goes on to say that they, John Croxford, Benjamin Deacon, and Richard Butland, were to die the next day, being condemned on the false oath of Anne Seymour, the vilest wretch that ever appeared in a court of justice, and that there was not one word of truth in her evidence and that of her boy, it being a hellish, malicious contrivance of theirs to take away their lives, that Crawford was never with Butler till Guilsborough feast, which was about the 25th of October, and never was in the close with Butland and Deacon but once, and that about the 15th of November, and never in the house with them, and that, in their opinion, no murder had been committed. That they did not doubt but the whole affair would be brought to light, though too late to be of any service to them. That they hoped Anne Seymour would be rewarded according to her deserts. That they would die in peace with her, and with all the world, bearing her no malice, only hoping the great God would make known their innocence. The document winds up with these words: done in Northampton jail, the night before the execution, as a caution to all good people. We, the poor unhappy sufferers, do severally set our hands to this, it being nothing but truth. John Croxford, Benjamin Deacon, Richard Butland. At the place of execution they behaved with great fortitude, still denying their knowledge of the murderer, but confessing themselves guilty to many irregularities. They gave much attention to the divine service, and departing, advising all spectators to beware of keeping bad company, and declaring that they died in peace with the world. After their execution, the body of John Crawford was carried to Hollowell Heath, in the parish of Guilsborough, where it was hanged in chains on a gibbet erected for that purpose, the bodies of Deacon and Butland being delivered to a surgeon to be dissected. This concludes the history of the Guilsborough murder, posterity concurring with the verdict of the jury, and agreeing that there were sensible and useful grounds for the appearance of the phantasm of the perjured Croxford to the chaplain of the Northampton jail. End Part 2 of Chapter 7.